Nowadays, superhero team-up movies are one of the most lucrative genres in Hollywood. In fact, we got two major superhero teams on the big screen just this past summer. For a long time, though, it seemed like the most popular superhero team of all, the Justice League, would never get a live-action movie of its own. From production delays to creative differences, DC didn't seem to be able to get a Justice League movie off the ground. That is, until a little-known Marvel movie broke box office records in 2012. That financial incentive seemed to be just what Warner Brothers needed to give the Super Friends a chance to star in their own live-action film. Now, the Justice League movie doesn't come out for a few more years, so it's anyone's guess as to whether it will be worth the wait or just a Phantom Menace-sized disappointment. But there's a few things they'll definitely need to get right. I'm a movie chef, and we're going to talk about the 5 steps for a perfect Justice League movie. Now, the name of the game for all of DC's upcoming comic book adaptations is going to be differentiating themselves from Marvel. Many times in the comic books, this has become a challenge, but the movies provide an opportunity to really get things right and to let the DC pantheon shine in its own unique way. Which brings us to our first ingredient for a perfect Justice League flick. Have the heroes choose one another. In the Justice League movie, and I know it's technically going to be 2 movies, but I'm going to treat it like one for right now. It's going to be imperative that the writers avoid using the same crutches that Marvel used when assembling their superhero team. Not only will this help create a story that is different from the Avengers in structure, but I think it'll also make for a more interesting narrative. I'm talking about S.H.I.E.L.D. No, not the show S.H.I.E.L.D., which, by the way, got really good in Season 2. You should totally watch it. Just saying. I'm talking about the way Marvel used S.H.I.E.L.D. as this magical way to recruit all of the world's heroes, starting with the very first mid-credit scene in Iron Man. There we see Nick Fury already knowing everything about Tony Stark and presumably the other members of the Avengers. This makes it very easy for the team to group up eventually since there's someone who can already work out all of the messy details. And I understand that Marvel was the first studio to take a crack at a movie like this, so I don't really blame them for going with the easy route. But DC doesn't have that excuse. They need to tell a story that's messier than the one Marvel told in the Avengers. That's actually a really good thing, though. Think about it. Would you rather have seen Nick Fury constantly pulling together the team, even though Iron Man and Captain America still aren't getting along 3 years later? Or would you have liked to have seen a movie where the heroes have to pull themselves together without outside help? Now, hopefully we'll already be getting some of this in Batman vs. Superman, but let's imagine a hypothetical way this could go. I obviously don't work for WB, so I'm just working with the facts about the movie that are rumored or officially confirmed by the studio. If we take those facts, though, what could we think of? For instance, imagine that the movie's villain steals some kind of magical or futuristic technology from the Amazonians. That's the people Wonder Woman's a part of. And that Wonder Woman then tracks this thief back to Gotham City. Now, this is especially convenient in the universe the movies are taking place in, because it's been revealed that in this version of the story, Gotham and Metropolis are 2 parts of the same city, like the boroughs in New York. So there Wonder Woman could team up with Batman and Superman, who were maybe friends by this point thanks to the events in Batman vs. Superman. Then from there they could easily head to Atlantis to meet up with Aquaman, since Atlantis might also have some sort of magical, futuristic-y type thing to be stolen. All you need is some subplot, maybe involving Star Labs, who could maybe be involved with these technological thefts, starring Flash and Cyborg, and you've pretty much got the whole team there, without any need for a shadowy government organization putting them together. And this kind of team gathering is also infused with exposition and plot development in a way S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't in the Marvel movies. And getting plot points in wherever you can is important in this kind of movie because of all the heroes you have to juggle. Which brings us to our second ingredient. A small number of main characters. One of the great things that Marvel did in Avengers, and that Fox has done in many of the X-Men movies, is to pick a small number of members within the superhero team to focus on. In fact, there's usually a maximum of 3 people that these movies really care about. In the original X-Men movies, it was Wolverine, Rogue, and Jean Grey. In the new X-Men movies, it's typically Xavier, Mystique, and Magneto. And the first Avengers wasn't bashful at all about keeping Hawkeye and Black Widow in the background while focusing on the arcs of Iron Man, Captain America, and the Hulk. So who should be the focus of the Justice League? Well, Batman is an easy first pick. A lot like Iron Man in the Marvel movies, Batman is going to be everyone's favorite character going in. He's the one we already all care about. Plus, there's not going to be a solo Batman movie before this one, so we're all probably going to be a little bat-hungry. Is that not a word? Am I the only one that gets that way? Whatever. The second obvious choice, I think, would be Wonder Woman. Not only is she another character with a pretty large built-in fan base, but it would also be a good idea to have a strong female lead in the movie. Two of the most critically successful action movies this year featured a strong female lead, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Diversity in stories isn't something writers should strive for just because it's nice. It's something that should be included because it actually makes stories more interesting and realistic. Now, if we're going by what I'll call the X-Men template, then we'll want one more character to really work on in the movie. This decision is a little harder, but I think our third ingredient should sort it out nicely. That is, the third spot in this group should be held by the one character who's important to the plot. This could kind of be seen as Rogue from the original X-Men movie, or maybe Mystique from Days of Future Past. It's the one character who's easy to make the audience care about, because in some way everything hinges on their outcome. Now, I think the easiest person for this role in the Justice League would be Cyborg. After all, if things go the way I suggested in steps 1 and 2, and the plot revolves around someone stealing technology, then Cyborg could easily be a potential victim or an unknown accomplice to our story's villain. It could also serve as a big boost to the importance of an otherwise little-known character. Now, some of you may have noticed that I haven't talked about Green Lantern yet. There's 2 reasons for this. First of all, I've only been working with characters so far that have been officially cast. DC still hasn't announced who's going to be playing Green Lantern as of when I'm making this video, even though they should know we all want it to be Denzel. But second of all, I don't really think this movie needs a Green Lantern. I think it would actually be very beneficial to maybe leave him out of an already overcrowded movie. Now, before all of the Green Lantern fans start sending death threats to my mother or something, let me explain. I'm a huge fan of Green Lantern. Growing up, he was my favorite member of the Justice League. His powers are just so cool. And I totally want him in the Justice League movies eventually. But maybe not this very first one? The only way I could see maybe forcing him into the plot is if he also had some kind of Mystique-esque role where the villain maybe needed to steal his ring to use as a power source or something. But it's just so easy to leave him out of this first film, especially because his solo movie could then be used to wash everyone's mouth of the awful first Lantern movie we got. I mean, that had so many things wrong with it that the character is going to need some damage control. And speaking of things wrong with the first Green Lantern movie, don't destroy a city. Now, I'm not just going to pick on Man of Steel for this, although that movie kind of did it the worst. But ever since the first Transformers movie came out, every big comic book movie has felt like it needed to destroy some huge city to be impressive. They didn't even really destroy much city in The Dark Knight Rises, but the advertising made it look like they were going to. In fact, one of the most boring parts of Avengers Age of Ultron was the fact that they chose to do the final battle in just another big city. Think about how much more interesting the movie could be if the climax takes place somewhere cooler. I've already suggested that the heroes go to Atlantis at one point to recruit Aquaman. Why not have their first run-in with the villain there? That could be a really cool action sequence, especially if they used a decent amount of practical effects. And for the climax, there's so many cooler places to have a big battle than just the streets of Metropolis. What about an abandoned theme park? Or an old movie studio? Or a space station? Heck, they could take a page from Dragon Ball Z and do something really awesome in a desert somewhere. My point is, there's tons of places big battles can happen, so why not be creative? Make it something that really goes well with whomever they're fighting. And speaking of that, it's actually super important that DC picks the right villain. Now, there's a lot of people who would say that the strength of a superhero movie correlates directly with the strength of its villain. And while I don't think this is true all of the time, I definitely think DC should be taking advantage of the amazing rogues gallery they have access to. Now, the only challenge with this is that Marvel has been very strategic with their choice of villains so far. It's almost like they're purposefully using characters that resemble the most popular DC bad guys. Don't believe me? The most obvious villain for the Justice League movie would be Darkseid. He's incredibly powerful and totally evil and has a lot of fans in the comic book community. But do you know what Marvel did as soon as Avengers was at its height in the box office? They announced a little movie starring a raccoon and a Parks and Rec star. And you know who the villain was for that movie? Thanos. An almost exact copy of Darkseid. Another great villain for the Justice League would be Brainiac. He's a living computer, android, alien type thing that has been plaguing Superman in the comics for decades. But wait, a sentient robot who's extremely powerful. Dang it, Marvel just made a movie about that, didn't they? Do you see what I mean? Another really good villain for the movie could be the Injustice League, a group that basically takes the best villain from each hero's story and teams them up. But the problem with this is that most of our heroes don't have a story yet. Only Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman will have really been introduced. Which takes me to my suggestion. The Joker. Now, this is assuming a few things. First of all, that he doesn't, die in Suicide Squad or something, which would be weird. And also that Jared Leto does a good job with the Joker. That's my first reason for choosing him. We get to see him in the Suicide Squad first. And maybe not even as the main villain, but just a sort of random aside. What if they use that movie to make sure Jared Leto has what it takes and to develop this new version of the Joker into someone that could carry the Justice League movie? Now, I know a lot of people are going to dislike this choice because of his lack of powers and overall mortality, but the Joker is really smart. Smart enough to outthink Batman sometimes. And if you want to see him take on the whole league really well, you should totally watch the episode that focuses on him and the Bruce Timm Justice League cartoon. It's called Wild Cards, and it's great. There's also the fact that this is a two-part movie. So maybe the Joker isn't a physically demanding villain, but maybe he does something through the course of Justice League Part 1 that opens up the team to battling someone more physically demanding in Part 2. Like maybe using stolen technology to open up a portal or something. That could be a really good way to end the first half of this story, with the Justice League failing and the Joker releasing some kind of omnipotent evil on the world. Now, who this evil person is could be up for debate, but I have my own ideas. Anyway, this has just been my recipe for what the perfect Justice League movie would look like. Do you agree? Disagree? Do you even care about the Justice League? Let me know in the comments, and be sure to subscribe. Until next time, I'm the Movie Chef. Hi everybody, thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, you know the drill. If there's anything I referenced in the video that you're curious about, I tried to link a lot of the stuff down in the doobly-doo. So just let me know if I forgot anything and I can add that. I'm going to try to upload one of these videos once a week, so tune in again around this time next week and there should be another one like it. See you later!